That's connected by HDMI maybe?
No, this is on Wi-Fi,
Oh, is it?
which is probably a mistake. This should probably be on whatever. But I have the presentations already preloaded. I loaded them up when I got here, so off time is still there. You want to send them a note?
To IT?
Yeah.
I can't.
Huh?
I don't have internet.
Doesn't have internet.
I
All
can
right.
go,
I get it.
I can go in the office and call him.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll tell ya.
Give us a moment here. We'll start the meeting shortly.
Okay, well,
I'm on Metro INET, and that is working. The city guest is not working. Try a
Right.
different one.
I just hooked up to my phone.
close. Yes.
You guys ready?
Pretty close.
All right. We're gonna call the city council meeting for the city of Lake Elmo, Tuesday, March 19th, 7 PM to order. If you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm gonna.
All right. The second order of business here is to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting. I'll entertain a motion as such.
Mayor, I'd like the item number 9, approve senior planner job description and job posting to be moved to the regular agenda.
Okay, we'll move that down to be after appoint commissioner, if that's okay.
Oh, and actually, Jack, didn't you want to approve engineering task order for MDH lead service line inventory?
I wanted to pull that item.
Pull that. Okay, so remove number 8 and move number 9.
Okay, scratch number 8 on the agenda and move number 9. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion as the agenda has been adjusted.
Move to approve the agenda with 8 and 9 moved to the regular agenda.
No, number 8 is scratched.
Scratched with 9 moved.
I'll support.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for the agenda as referenced, with number 8 being removed and number 9 being moved down to the bottom of the regular agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. The next item is approve the minutes from the March 6th and March 12th, 2024 meeting.
So move.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 6th, 2024 and March 12th, 2024, please signify by saying aye.
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 Minutes are hereby approved. Do we have any public comments or inquiries this evening?
We do not.
All right. We do have a presentation today, though. Would the JCs like to approach the podium and? Yeah, I just said, there's, okay, if you want to take a seat, we can go back. There's a sign-in sheet in the back. Put your name. It's for items that are not on the agenda. So we'll just give those gentlemen a moment.
working on getting the internet up?
Yeah, she's working on it. She got a call into them. They're aware of
Okay.
it, so they're, but it's kind of funny because the one Metro INET Wi-Fi works and the guest doesn't, but we don't have the VPN availability to get into our server drives through the Wi-Fi, which normally we have. So there's a disconnect somewhere in there.
So it probably
And I'm
will.
assuming,
I can create a
and these guys
hotspot.
are wired, so I'm assuming that's working.
I did,
Are you a Galaxy Note 20?
yes. Oh, okay. Okay, so we do have a couple people that would like to talk during the public comments and inquiries. You have 6 minutes to speak. During this time, if you address with questions, they won't be answered at the time, but later directed by staff to respond to any comments or any questions that come up. I'll call your name. Please approach the podium with your name and address for the record. Would be much appreciated. Mr. Robert Moore.
Mohar, yep, that's me. I put the address of my building that I have downtown,
Yeah, if you just say it for the
3520.
record.
3520 Laverne Avenue North.
Yep.
By the old fire station. And I just came, I sent all the council members an email yesterday. Let them know where I am at on that building, and we bought that building, and I say we, because I bought it with my dad. We went into business at a tool and die shop there in 1990. And the company paid for that building, but it was in my dad had it as a contract for deed with Gene Cito when, we bought all his equipment, and he was the previous owner, and paid for it all these years. It's in my mother's name. My dad passed away, and it's in my mother's name, and she always, we went to about 2012, so 90 to 2012, and I had to get out. The economy went really bad. My dad passed away, and things were bad, and I had to make some money, try to keep it going, working somewhere else and running it, till 2014. Then it's empty. My brothers had to get a job. It sat there since then, and my mom got dementia, and she was sick for years. She's the hospice champion at the nursing home, because she was in hospice for over 2 years. She passed away this summer, and we're selling the building. So we went to work, and we scrubbed out the building. We had an auction, and we auctioned off the rest of the equipment this fall. We got a hold of David Myers, a realtor. I signed with him this fall, because we're gonna put it up for sale. And people over the years have been asking me about that building, and a lot of them came out of the woodwork. And before we listed it, we had a good offer, and we were just getting down to getting this offer done, and the moratorium went on. And it's gone now, and now we're stuck with this building, and people don't really want to buy it with this moratorium. So I'm just here to bring this to your attention. It's hurting me. I'm the trustee for my mom's all her money, and there's 6 siblings, 2 have passed away, so there's grandkids, and they're all looking to get this done, and what's gonna happen is we're gonna have to hang on to this building and pay the taxes, and we're still paying the street improvements and the sewer and the water, from years ago, and it's a ton of money that our family's been paying on this building, and I just want to bring this to your attention and just let you know what's going on. And when you made that decision, people like me, and I'm just, we're trying to catch up, because we almost went bankrupt, and we had to get jobs, and this is really hurting us. So, I don't know what we can, I'm not expecting to get anything resolved right now, but I just bringing it to everyone's attention. So that's, just wanted to say my piece here. So
Thank you.
that's what I have. Yep.
David Meyer?
Hi, I'm David Meyer, 8845 27th Street North, so I do live here in Lake Elmo as well. And met Rob and have been working with Rob to get the building sold. As he mentioned, we've had some decent interest in it. And as soon as the moratorium hit, I got the letter from the buyer that we had lined up, which was a good, solid situation for us to get the building sold. And he said, hey, with this moratorium, probably not. So we're kind of back to square one. And what I would ask you to think about is two things. Is one, in terms of the long-range plan or the decisions that go into what's going on downtown, why not just take them one by one as they come in? Versus putting a whole moratorium on everything and holding up the entire city. It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. And why we would do that, I don't know. But you got this family here trying to move on from the death of their mother, and now they're stuck for a whole nother year based on this moratorium. So utilities that have to be paid, snow removal, care of the building, maintenance, all that kind of stuff, they're stuck with that now for a whole nother year. And I just have to wonder why. I mean, why can't we do both, work on the long-range plan for the downtown area as well as deal with individual properties as they come up? So that's where I'm coming from as a realtor, and I can tell you that even if we do get another offer, that offer is likely going to be significantly reduced based on the fact that the moratorium is there, and whoever buys it's going to be going, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do with it what I want to do with it. And am I supposed to just hold it now for a whole nother year and sit on it until the council decides to finally make a move? So I would just ask you to reconsider that moratorium, and to be honest, I'd get rid of it. I think you're hurting our downtown, you're hurting our business, you're hurting our ability to develop the downtown and turn it into something more attractive. Rob's building is a perfect building for a lot of different buyers. We haven't even gone to market yet, and we've had six or seven different people that were interested in it. It's kind of the perfect mid-sized building that now is completely empty. It's just basically the rectangle, which is perfect for somebody that wants to come in there. It could be a restaurant, it could be a distillery or a brewery, tap room, something like that. It could be a gym. There are just all kinds of different things that building could be. A little boutique hotel, you name it. It's kind of endless because it's a blank slate. So I would just ask you to reconsider that for your next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Okay. Next, we do have the J.C.'s here to present a donation.
Hi, Mayor Cadenhead and council members. My name is Emily Carlson. I am the charitable gambling manager for the Lake Elmo JCs. And I have here with us Stacy Myers, our chapter president for this year. We conduct our business, excuse my allergies. We have a pull-tab booth at Twin Point, and really appreciate all the members of the community that come out and support our pull-tab operation, because then we're able to donate back to here the city and multiple other organizations, and places like Lake Elmo Elementary School. We donate to them pretty regularly. Several of the sports organizations, Lake Elmo Baseball, and all of that. So we do have a check for $7,600 to donate to the city based on our net sales from last year. We were down a little bit towards the end of the year, which affected our net profit a little bit, but everything seems to be pumping right back up. So I'm going to let President Stacy say a few words, if that's all right.
I'm President Stacy Myers for the JCI Lake Elmo. We have Huff and Puff. We do a lot of the community, or some of the community events in town. We have Huff and Puff, our softball tournament, that we're always looking for new members to help us with all of our projects. Unfortunately, we're not able to do the Easter egg hunt this year due to manpower and membership being down. But we are always looking for new members, ages 18 to 40, to help us continue to serve the community, and we thank you for allowing us to serve the community as long as we have.
I'm very much appreciative of the J.C.'s and what they do in the community, and certainly will accept this donation. You can get a picture with,
Yeah, they brought the big check.
Everybody down.
You just wanna step up here?
Have to worry, the only other good-looking guy is up front.
Yep.
Like the clearinghouse? Makes you head McMahon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yes, 18 to 40.
Got one more year.
All right, so next we have the consent agenda. I'll read through them. Number 2 is approved payment of disbursements. Number 3 is accept donation from the Lake Elmo J.C.'s Resolution 2024-032. Number 4 is approve union contract tentative agreement. Number 5 is approve Easton Village 6th and 7th Development Agreement, Resolution 2024-033. Number 6 is approve Northstar First Edition Development Agreement, Resolution 2024-034. Number 7, approve plans and specs and order advertisement for bids for the 30th Street North Gap segment improvements. And that is all we have remaining on the consent agenda. With that, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Holtz, a second by Councilmember Beckstrom. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is hereby approved. On our regular agenda, first item we have, number item on the agenda meeting is accept feasibility report and call for improvement hearing and approve plans and specifications and order advertisement for bids for the 15th Street North improvements. That City Engineer Jack Griffin will present.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we have before you both the feasibility report for 15th Street North improvements and approval of the plans and specifications as we're doing those processes in concert as part of this project. Just start with kind of the quick schedule of where we've been and where we are at this point. So the council authorized preparation of preliminary design for our 2024 Collector Street roadway improvements, which included 15th Street, 30th Street, and Hudson Boulevard. Back in December, on December 5th, we presented the preliminary design findings and recommendations from that for each of those roadway segments. And at that time, the council ordered the preparation of a feasibility report and plans and specifications for 15th Street North. The feasibility report was authorized because a portion of the improvements was directed to be assessed as part of that project. So that's the main purpose for the feasibility portion of the project. So we've completed both of those documents, and we're here tonight to present both the feasibility report and the plans and specs. And so going forward, if the council accepts the feasibility report tonight, we would notice the benefiting properties. We would publish that in the paper, and then we would have a public improvement hearing that we would schedule for May 7th. Simultaneously, we'd be advertising for contractor bids, and we'd come back on the 7th, have the public improvement hearing, we'd have the actual bids in hand, and we would be looking to make a decision at that point as far as moving forward with the project. And then we do have a neighborhood meeting or property owner meeting with those impacted properties tentatively scheduled for April 25th at this time. Should the feasibility report get accepted and we schedule that public improvement hearing, and then that's staff's opportunity to get this information out to them prior to that public improvement hearing. And all of this is with the idea that this project would be ready for construction for this summer and be completed in 2024. So with that, just a quick project location map. We're talking about 15th Street North from the Oakdale city limits to Inwood Avenue. This is the existing road conditions. It's in the red. It's a very poor road condition. A couple years ago, there was some major patchwork, major overlays done just to tide this road forward a few years. It's a collector roadway, and it's a municipal state aid route, and really just a connection point to Oakdale from going west from Inwood Avenue. So consistent with what we presented, there's really been almost no change from the preliminary design presentation that was done in December, and today it's a pretty straightforward project. It's a rural section roadway. It's 40 feet of pavement today, 2 12-foot drive lanes and 2 8-foot shoulders. We're giving it a little bit of a diet. We're doing it 36-foot wide, and we're just going to do a reclaim of the whole roadway. So this roadway was originally in your CIP as a full reconstruction. The good news when we did the geotechnical work is that a full depth reclamation was found that we can do that and still achieve a 10-ton design for the roadway. So it's really just gonna, it makes the construction process quicker as well, recycling the in-place materials and placing that as your new base material and then putting a new 4-inch bituminous mat on top of that. So, and with that, because we're shrinking the roadway width, there's no stormwater management improvements necessary. The water just all drains to the north and south sides from the center crown, so it's a pretty simple project. There's really no sewer improvements, no stormwater management improvements, so it really is just that full depth reclamation project. So that's just the typical section showing we are bringing it in 2 feet on each side, from 40 feet paved surface to 36. So then when we're taking a look at the properties, these are the accessible properties that abut the improvement and have driveway access to it. The properties highlighted in, there's 6 properties highlighted in yellow that are single-family residential, and then the reddish property is highlighted as it's operating as a commercial property with a storage facility on the site. So these are the properties that are identified for being assessed. However, we have had some recent looking into these properties further, and we identified this first parcel as being an ag preserve, which does prohibit that property from being assessed. And then we found a few others are what we call partial ag preserves. So if you look at each of these sites, a portion of that site is identified as ag preserve. So that one, those 3 are all owned by the same property owner. And then interestingly enough, we found that the commercial property is partially as ag preserve, and we're not sure if the use in that is consistent. So following tonight's meeting, staff would need to do a follow-up on each of these proposed assessments and to determine whether they actually have to be taken off the assessment roll. The standard practice for the city is when something's in ag preserve, they are still used as part of the calculation method in terms of the assessments, so that you're not, if they are removed from the assessment roll, you're not allocating their portion to the other benefiting properties. It's really just picked up by the general tax levy. So we do have a preliminary assessment roll including all these properties. What staff will be presenting is we suggest we leave it on there and accept the feasibility report in that manner. And by the time that we come back for the, adopting the preliminary assessment rule, we'll have firm recommendations on whether each one of these parcels, in its own review, will belong on the assessment roll or not. So, assuming they were all to be assessed, we went through our standard assessment practices. The total estimated project cost, as we're going to bids, is estimated to be $532,000. We looked at the 6 residential properties, assessed 30% of those total project costs, and assessed them each on a 1-unit method, each parcel having 1 unit. We calculated then an $8,200 per assessment per residential property. The non-residential property that's acting as a commercial property, we looked at as assessing it on a lineal footage basis at 100% of the costs. And so that came out to be $39 a foot, and there's 1,020 lineal feet of frontage by that property. So we came up with a preliminary assessment for that one commercial property at $39,800. If those assessments stood as they are, we are allocating municipal state aid funds in the amount of $330,000 toward this project. We have a state aid fund balance of just about 1.8 million, and we're allocating part of those funds to 15th Street and part of those funds to Hudson Boulevard, based on about 65% of the project cost for each of them. When we calculate the assessment revenue that would be generated by the properties, assuming they're not the ag preserve, it would be it calculates it at $89,000, which leaves the city share of the assessable portion of the projects of $113,000. I don't expect you to read this, but this is the assessment roll that's in the preliminary assessment roll that's in the feasibility report and posted online and provided to the property owners. So it lists each of those properties we just went through from the map, has them and has on the list and has what their assessable property is. So again, our recommendation for tonight would be to accept the feasibility report as is, and we would provide an update moving forward with the project. So the summary of the findings and recommendations for the feasibility report is that the street pavements along 15th Street North are beyond their useful service life and require the improvements as recommended in the report. Geotechnical investigation was completed as part of the report, and a full depth reclamation was recommended for the improved streets and to obtain a 10-ton roadway design. It's recommended that we reduce the pavement surface width from 40 feet to 36 feet, leaving us with 6-foot paved shoulders rather than 8. There's no storm sewer or stormwater management improvements necessary or recommended as part of the project. As a designated municipal state aid street, we're recommending that $330,000 of your state aid construction account be expended toward the project. And then it's recommended that an assessment be levied in accordance with the preliminary assessment rules provided in the report, and as may be amended to address the ag preserve properties. The street assessments are payable over 15 years at a bond rate of plus 1%. And the project as proposed is technically and financially feasible, is necessary, cost effective, and will result in benefit to the properties. So the council action that we're requesting tonight is to consider approving a resolution receiving the feasibility report, calling the hearing on the improvement, approving the plans and specifications, and ordering the advertisement for bids. And then the hearing on the improvement would be scheduled for May 7th council meeting. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the city engineer? Not hearing any. Thank you. Given that, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 2024-035, receiving the feasibility report, calling hearing on improvement, approving the plans and specifications, and ordering the advertisement for bids for the 15th Street North improvements.
There's a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Holtz, a second by Councilmember Dragisich. All those in, discussion, sorry. Any discussion?
I was gonna say, thank you for the work, and I'm glad to see that we don't have to do a full-depth reclamation.
No,
Save-
we are doing full depth reclamation. We're not doing a full reconstruction.
We're not doing a full reconstruction. I am not the engineer on here, that's your two jobs.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that, because it's definitely saving all those involved, including the city and the specific property owners. So I'll be very curious to see what comes with the egg preserve aspects for that. That was the first I'd heard of it earlier this week as well, so I'll be very curious how that plays out, as we're gonna be talking about egg preserve parcels frequently in the coming weeks.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. We've already got the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, resolution is passed. Next, we have a discussion on conduit bonding policy.
Okay. Mayor, City Council, tonight I'll be presenting introduction to conduit bonding, and we'll be hearing a PowerPoint from Jenny Bolton from Kennedy and Graven, who is the bonding expert for the law firm. Conduit bonding has come to our attention recently with a development that is proposed utilizing this conduit bonding in a portion of a housing along Hudson Boulevard. And the city does not have a conduit bonding policy. So there's nothing for developers or other people to look at. That being said, I think it's important to consider this policy in the overall scope of the entire city and not just this property which is proposing it, because that may or not be in your interest. Conduit bonding is an avenue where the city uses its tax exempt status to issue bonds that in turn are paid for by the persons receiving them. And these can be nonprofits. In your packet, you can see, you've read through these things, but there's basically 3 different qualifications, which Jenny will be answer much more in-depth questions on, but the main ones would be the 105-13 bonds, which are, the proceeds would be used for nonprofits. Typically, examples include nursing homes, hospitals, senior and affordable housing, schools, or colleges. And, but they can be used for other types of financing, so YMCA, public radio. And so, and then we have a second type, which would be a housing bond, and then a small issue manufacturing bond. And she'll go into more in depth on that. My experience is limited to one issuance of $30 million of conduit bonds when I was a county administrator to put a surgical suite on a local hospital in Wisconsin. And we did that, and was very beneficial, not only to the hospital, but also to the organization. Typically, organizations receive, based on your policy, 1/4 to 1% of the issuance bonds total. In this case, if you issued $10 million, you'd get $100,000 for that. So we got $300,000 from this in the Ashland one, basically to provide the conduit to this. Jenny will answer questions, which I'm sure you're going to have, because the county board certainly did, concerning what happens if they fail. So with that, I'm just gonna bring Jenny up. I will bring up her PowerPoint here. Which one is it? That one? Slides.
Yeah, just, right, the full screen, do it.
I'll let you do it.
You're gonna hit the one.
There we go.
There.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Jenny Bolton from Kennedy and Graven. I am the city's bond counsel. And I'm here to do sort of an high-level introduction to conduit revenue bonds. So just the concept of a conduit revenue bond is that the city acts as a gateway for a private entity to borrow money at a tax exempt rate. And all of the money and the obligations flow directly between the bondholders or investors or lender and that conduit borrower. There's no money that actually goes through the city. So you're really just acting as a gateway to provide this opportunity as a financing tool for certain qualified organizations. So the entities that can use it are 501c3 nonprofits, and that's specifically 501c3. You can't be lobbying organizations. So these are the charitable educational types of organizations. Affordable housing, and those have specific income limits at both the federal level and then an additional layer at the state level. And then certain exempt facilities. We don't see a lot of this. You might see some district energy use for district heating and cooling, and some ports and wharves and rarely sewage facilities. This is only if there's a private user involved. So mostly the city wouldn't, you wouldn't run into this a whole lot. And then the final one is manufacturing facilities, and this is true manufacturing. Type of financing is rarely used now. There's an overall $20 million limit over a 6-year window that does not work with most manufacturing businesses. It's a limitation that hasn't grown with time, and so it's too tight for most manufacturers to use. So the reason that the borrowers, those entities that are qualified, want to do this is they can borrow at a lower interest cost. And that is because the investors who buy the bonds are not paying income taxes at the state or federal level. And because they don't have to pay taxes on the interest income that they're earning, they will charge a lower rate to the borrower. It's the same concept as the city receives when the city issues its tax-exempt bonds. And this is just giving that same opportunity to these private entities. This is a financing tool that was made available at the federal level by Congress to achieve public purposes, which would be those charitable missions that nonprofits, 501c3 nonprofits have, affordable housing, and manufacturing. So the idea is these are things that are beneficial to the public as a whole, and so we want to make that available to these entities. There was a period of time before the mid-'80s when the conduit revenue bonds could be used for all types of commercial enterprises, and the thought was that really diluted the value of the tax exemption, so it has been restricted since the mid-'80s to just these limited purposes. The conduit borrower is one of these entities. As Clark was suggesting, it might be a hospital, it might be a nursing home, senior housing facility. These are entities that are doing a capital project. So they're buying a building, renovating a building. They might be acquiring a significant piece of equipment. Usually it's something that's a real property transaction, a building or land. They need to seek out their own financing. They're not coming to the city and asking you to put together a financing project. You're not looking to your municipal advisor to put that together. They work with an underwriter or a lender to provide that financing, and then that process is carried through with the city just providing the access. That borrower gets the benefit of the tax exemption, and for that privilege, they will make sure the city is not incurring any costs. So any out-of-pocket costs that you would incur, like bond counsel, they're going to pay. And the documents that govern these financings have indemnification provisions so that if there were any sort of issues that came up, the nonprofit borrower would be responsible for making sure that the city didn't pay that cost. And then in addition, the nonprofit or the borrower will pay the city's fee if the city has a fee, which would be part of your policy. And then all of the debt is secured by the revenues and assets of the conduit borrower. So typically, there's a mortgage that's pledged for whatever that real property asset is that they're financing. So the impact on the city for providing this tool is that it really does not have, it's not your money, it doesn't have a cost. You're not coming out of pocket for it, you're not putting your levying authority behind it, you're not putting any of your assets or revenues to secure it. It does not affect your credit rating for your own bonds. And if there's a default, the investors have to look through just to the collateral that's pledged, the mortgage on the real property or any sort of equipment or accounts that can provide collateral for the financing, not any assets of the city. And as I said, there's a fee for that. The one consideration that you would want to keep in mind is that anytime you're doing a 501c3 financing, so this is the nonprofits, the hospitals, nursing homes, charter schools, private schools, there is an overall annual limit on both the city's governmental purpose financing and 501c3 financings to be designated as bank qualified. That is a designation which helps, in most instances, bring down the cost of a financing. It's the ability to designate those bonds as bank qualified, but it does not limit your ability to finance. So in any year, you could issue more than $10 million of bonds, but they just wouldn't get this special designation. Now, typically, when you're approached by a 501c3 nonprofit looking to do conduit revenue bonds, you would look first at what does the city want to finance in that calendar year, and only issue 501c3 bonds for the amount that's left. So say you wanted to do $5 million for your own purposes, you could do another $5 million for the 501c3 organization and still be within that $10 million total limit. If in any year you were to go over that, say you issued $12 million of bonds, your own bonds would not be bank qualified. And then if you were to issue for a nonprofit, their bonds could not be bank qualified. It can be a disadvantage. It might not work for them in that year. There are ways to work through that, but this doesn't limit your ability to do your own financings. You just factor it in when you're making your financing decisions. So something to keep in mind. There is a fair amount of process to doing this kind of financing. We try as bond counsel to keep that simple for the city so that you're not hitting a lot of the touch points. There is, for any borrower that is not a 501c3, mostly this is affordable housing borrowers, there is a process to apply for bonding authority from the state. It's not money coming from the state, it's just the authority to issue bonds. And that is because at the federal level, there is an overall limit on the dollar amount of conduit bonds for non-501c3s that can be issued in a year. That's based on population, it's allocated based on state law. So there's an application that's submitted. It's a competitive process. There is not enough capacity to do all of the financing statewide that borrowers would like to do. So not every deal that you're approached by would necessarily move forward when they apply. So that's sort of a threshold step for non-501c3 deals. For all deals, there does need to be a public hearing conducted by the city council. So there's a notification process for that. And then after that public hearing, the council needs to adopt a resolution approving the issuance. That can happen in multiple steps. It can happen in one step. It sort of depends on the council's preference. And then there are numerous documents with many parties, and that part you're really not involved in, other than to approve them. And then there's certain of those documents that the city would be a party to. And as bond counsel, we're mostly preparing those documents, and we're looking for key factors that include the legal authority to do it, the requirements to do it tax exempt, and making sure that the city is indemnified and that the collateral that's provided is just through the conduit borrower. So it's protecting those interests of the city in the documents. Last one.
Yeah.
All right.
So what we're asking today is one, basically two questions. One, should the council direct staff to draft a conduit bonding policy? And if so, what tranches of conduit bonding is the council interested in working with? And this goes back to the write-up of the 501c3, the housing revenue, and small manufacturing bonds. Within the qualified 501c3, you could also delineate within there what you're particularly interested in. You could say, we only want to issue conduit bonding for medical facilities. And then that's all that, so developers and other people, that's the only thing that could come to you, because that's your policy. Policies can be changed by any council at any time, of course, but this puts your thoughts down going forward. This is what you're interested in. So there's no rush to this in my mind, but if you're interested in entertaining this, I would entertain feedback and come back to you with a policy, draft policy for you to look at further. Questions?
Questions? Councilmember Holtz?
So, thank you for that presentation. I was looking through the example for Oakdale, and they have language in there. It's the judgment of the city council that tax exempt financing is to be used on a selective basis, So hypothetically, say we said we want this and we'd like it to be in all three areas, and it's very general. And an applicant comes forward a year from now and it's for a nonprofit, a private school for 4,000 kids. If it's in our policy and they're making that application, when it comes before us, is it a quasi-judicial review or is it a legislative review when it comes to us?
You would have, even if the policy didn't limit the scope, you have discretion, and that's part of the reason it is subject to a public hearing. Because there is no implication that this will be provided for everybody who seeks it. You can indicate ahead of time. You might not go through the process. You can indicate ahead of time that you're not supportive of the project or the use of conduit bonds. But even if you did move forward with the project, you can hold the hearing and decline to issue the bonds. So.
And in your experience, have you seen applicants where they try to utilize this and maybe TIF or tax abatement at the same time, where they're trying to use multiple tools at the same time?
Yes, I have definitely seen those kinds of applications. That comes up more so on affordable housing, because those are tools that are both available for affordable housing. It doesn't work for, there isn't the same overlap with other types of things. The TIF for warehouse and distribution, that isn't that isn't something that you could do manufacturing for both, but again, that isn't a tool that's utilized a whole lot. But definitely, it is something where there's a there's often a companion request, not always, and you can move forward with conduit bonds and deny TIF. They don't have to be both approved. But yeah, sometimes they do come together.
Thank you.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
I guess what I'm struggling with a little bit is understanding what's the benefit to the city to do this?
So there's a couple benefits to the city, one of which is you're building your economic base. So a lot of cities are utilizing this to either expand their housing, to expand their industrial parks, or do some sort of public good. We tend to have a lot of people coming to our city already, so it's, whether this happens or not, I'm not sure it's gonna affect our economic base. The other aspect is it pretty much is free money. I would dedicate it, council could dedicate it wherever they want. I'm sure you could put it in the Parks Fund to help with that. If you wanted to put $100,000 in there, because that's how much fees you could get from a $10 million operation if you set the fee at that level. Anything else?
Yeah, no, that's really the idea, is that these are four types of projects where there's a thought that there is a public benefit for having these types of facilities in the community. And so you're helping to enable that development through this financing tool at no cost, no direct cost to the city, and maybe with generating some fee revenue.
Follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Just in follow-up to that, so in the city of Lake Elmo, yes, I'm looking at the benefit for Lake Elmo, and I know you referenced free money, which it's really not free money, because there's city costs to doing this, there's a process. And if we were to adopt a policy related to low-income housing, that actually costs money to the city from a service standpoint. So it's actually adding cost to our city versus free money. So is this, for cities that utilize this, is it mostly cities that are more established and there's less demand to grow? I mean, we're growing significantly. We have developers lined up to come into Lake Elmo. So again, I'm trying to understand the benefit when we have developers waiting to
Well,
develop.
so like, I go back to the county issue we had, which is the hospital for this local area, which served 3 counties, needed to modernize and add on a surgical suite. And they needed $30 million for that. And so we put this together as a public good to serve the community by adding on to the hospital. Definitely a public good. The city could, when I'm looking for feedback, the city could say, we're not interested in issuing conduit bonds for affordable housing. That's a council decision. You could decide. Maybe you only want to think of a nursing home or a hospital. We're going to have, or other types of uses that you feel are in the general interest of the public.
We've had those come in already. So again, I'm struggling with just based on our own individual community and how we're growing and developing. And I understand the medical situation, but I absolutely don't see that happening in our community with some big corporate healthcare systems that can fund with their own bonds. So can someone just, are you able just to maybe provide more perspective from other cities on what they kind of look like when they go down this path?
This comes up in cities of all sizes and development levels, and it really is dependent on the organizations that are in the community and the view of those organizations as a benefit to the community. One clarification on this tax benefit is on income taxes to the investors. So the entities that would come in and develop would be paying their property taxes, to the extent that they are tax-paying entities. So to the extent that the city is providing services to those, there would be the typical tax base paid for those. I wouldn't say that there's a typical profile of the communities that issue for these. It's in all, outstate, metro, big, small, we see it in many communities. We do see some smaller cities that will issue, even for projects that are in other communities because of the fee that they receive. That wouldn't necessarily be something, that you'd consider, but we see all kinds of different cities involved in this. And again, it's usually because they have a business in town that they see as beneficial and see value in providing this service.
And there have been cases of cities issuing conduit bonds for a project that's not even in their city, just for the money. Just to get money out of it, so it doesn't necessarily have to be that. The council could also decide that they don't want a conduit bonding policy. In that case, that's a decision also that we could put forth so that any developers or anybody coming to the city, they know ahead of time the city is absolutely not interested in this type of financing, whether it's in the city or even outside the city.
Just for clarification or question, could you kind of, you said examples of private for-profit entities for housing. What would those be like?
Well, so there's a, the project that brought this to mind when I realized you didn't have a policy is actually a for-profit company. This is the Kramer Lake Development. They are a for-profit company wanting to put in, I think it was 60% affordable housing units down there. And they said they wanted to utilize this type of financing in order to make that particular area of the development, profitable or at least break even.
Is workforce housing and affordable housing same thing?
Yes.
Those are terms that, right, can be used, are often used interchangeably.
Okay.
There are income requirements in order to have the authority to do this. At least 20% of the units have to be at 50% area median income or less, or 40% of the units at 60% area median income or less. And those are the types of projects that the for-profit, usually partnership organizations, lots of investors, are doing with the conduit revenue bonds. Those are the ones that require this authority from the state. It's more limited than the 501c3 authority. But they, in order to get that authority from the state, the more affordability there is, the more likely it's going to get that authority to move forward. So the workforce housing usually implies that it's at that higher income level, the 60%, and maybe fewer of the units, maybe closer to the 40%. But those projects probably aren't going to move forward that way with conduit revenue bonds, given the limited number of bonds that can be issued.
Okay.
And there are affordable housing projects that are like 100%, 30%. 100% meaning at 30% of AMI. Those really have to be almost 100% fund granted. They can't function and make it by taking out loans or bonds on those kind of things. They have to be just pretty much foundations paying for that. So.
Got it. Councilmember
So as I
Jackson.
understand, the city could adopt a policy for conduit bonds, and they may never use it, but it'd be a tool they would have should they choose to use it for a project they felt was important to the development of the city.
Yep. Or you could develop a policy that says, here's our conduit bonding policy, and we only want to do one thing, or we want to do no thing. In which case, that's a document that sits on our city website. Everybody would say, these people are not interested in conduit bonding. So either way, we should draft something that states your intent as a governing body.
Is this what we had public comment for?
Yeah, we do. Is that all we have for questions? All right, we do have somebody that wanted to make a public comment on this topic. Again, if you'll come to the podium, state your name and address. I'll give you 6 minutes to talk. And any questions will not be answered at the time. However, will be referred to staff to answer if there are any. Mr. Roth.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thanks for your time this evening. 10819 3rd Street Place in the Forest, 20-year resident and former planning commissioner. Over the past 20 years I've been here in Lake Elmo, I've seen, I believe with all of you, some great developments come into our city. And I think it was Councilmember Beckstrom that said, you know, we have developers lining up. We have the tools, we have everything we need, it seems today, to meet the goals and vision of the 2040 comprehensive plan. So unless there's something really specific, a 501c3 need, until then, I don't know why we would spend city resources to even bother with a policy for conduit bonding. So I don't see how it helps us achieve our goals in the 2040 plan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
So at this point, if council has any direction for staff to bring back a policy, I would take such feedback.
Okay. Anybody want to move something?
Clarification, when's the next EDA meeting?
Johnson?
May or June?
Yeah, they're quarterly. I'm not sure exactly the date, though.
It's May or June.
Council could direct it to the EDA and have another,
Oh, and I don't want to say anything additional because it'd be a comment. Staff, what are your thoughts on if the EDA were to have input on this as well as one of the aspects, like say in terms of possible manufacturing bonds? It's functionally similar to TIF in that regard, but obviously it's vastly different than some of the other demands that we're seeing for, as Councilmember Beckstrom did say, we're not seeing a lack of demand for residential, but what are your thoughts as to whether EDA would be a place to have a discussion as well?
I think that'd be appropriate. Staff could come up with a presentation to look at manufacturing bonds within the conduit bond process. I will say I know almost nothing about it. And so it'd be educational for me, obviously, to figure out what is allowable and what's not allowable.
Well, and I was using that as one of the examples. I was not suggesting if there were a motion on the floor to send to the EDA, I was not suggesting to limit what they would hear.
Okay. But you know, in all generality, I think it would be good just to have more details concerning what that manufacturing portion of this would be, you know.
Was it, I think it was indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, that the manufacturing bonds really are outdated for probably inflation and time? Is that what I heard?
Mayor and council members, yeah, there are limitations on manufacturing bonds, the dollar amount limits that have made them very challenging to get done in recent years. So we don't see a lot of them. They do come up from time to time. And it's certainly a tool that, you know, if you had a small manufacturer in town who needed to do, you know, a limited capital financing and hadn't done a lot of investment in recent years, it might benefit them. It doesn't come out a lot, but that doesn't mean it's worthless.
Thank you.
I would like to move that we refer this to the EDA to get their feedback.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Councilmember Beckstrom.
I think an important question we need to ask is how much of staff time should be spent on this topic when we don't have an immediate need to be addressing this. We have very limited staff. We have an interim administrator. And I don't see a need to implement any conduit bonding at this point, given the state of our developments in the city. And so I think we should really press ourselves to stay focused on where we add value to the city, and I'm not sure that this is a topic that warrants resources spent on it at this time. Maybe revisit it in a year. Maybe we'll be in a different position from a water standpoint and development, but I guess I just don't feel the need to expend resources at this point on this topic.
I'm all for one of having, you never know when you're gonna need that tool in your toolbox. It might sit there for 5 to 10 years before you need it. However, in this case, it was not in any of our strategic initiatives for the council over the year, and things do pop up that we need to pay attention to it. And I do appreciate the administrator bringing this to our attention and educating us on it. However, as one of the residents indicated, if it becomes a need, and really I'll just say that I look at this as something entirely for a 501(c)(3) type function, whether it be medical or something like that. And that you know, for example, there are some medical companies that are moving into the old IMation, and that could span across into areas that are in the Lake Elmo side that are zoned appropriately for that. But I do think that we could, with council's help and Ms. Bolton's help, we could get that done in a timely fashion. So I'm not sure that I really want to spend the effort and time on this. We do have a lot of oars in the water that the city's got going on, and so that's where I'm sitting on this. I think it would be good to do, but it's not something that we had, and you're never gonna figure out what you're gonna do over the next couple years in your initiatives meeting, right? But I do think we do have our hands full at this time. Councilmember Dragisich.
Mayor, I share your thoughts on, having a tool in a toolkit, even if you may not use it. And I wasn't suggesting that it be a long or lengthy or time-consuming discussion, but a discussion with the EDA on whether we ought to, in fact, look at this as a tool to have or not. And my anticipation wasn't staff would spend a great deal of time, was more the discussion we're having tonight. So that my fear is we have an EDA and it's a development tool. If we don't give them some opportunity for input, we may get, some negative feedback.
And if I might just reply to that, Councilmember, is that the EDA also has kind of its charter, if you will, and not that it has to be, these things do happen. You have to be flexible when things come up, and maybe we need to look at it sooner than later if we know. But I think we can still process that through an EDA, whether it's a special meeting or whatever at that time for that discussion. At least that's my opinion.
So if I'm a potential user of this tool and I'm looking at cities where I may want to do a manufacturing facility or something that would be qualified under here, and I went to a city's website and they didn't have any process for doing it or otherwise, I may not even discuss it with them. I may go to a city that says they do conduit bonding.
That'd be a possibility. Yeah, I mean, I like I said, it's your decision if you want a policy or not and what that policy says. If you're not interested in this, I would say our policy on conduit bonding is we're not interested at this time. But you could say we would entertain something if there's something special coming up. I mean, we could draft something that would be letting people know that you're never going to consider it, or you basically might consider it. And this will come back at a future meeting. You don't have to make a decision today. I'm not asking you to put a stake in the ground today.
I never want to say never.
Yeah, so if we can just leave it here for tonight, and we can come back at another meeting with maybe just a couple statements. I don't feel there's buy-in from the council to develop a policy at this point, and we will come up with basically what I would call a policy statement concerning conduit bonding for your approval. So the governing body has said what they're interested in. if everybody's okay with that.
And honestly, the other thought for me is, I also want to have perspective from our fifth council member as well, as it is a policy that does matter. Just similar to our discussion that we had several years ago with TIF, that was a very important conversation, and I would like to know his input as well on that, but technically, we have a motion on the floor.
I would withdraw my motion and wait for the fifth counselor to be here if you'd like.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
You're setting a precedent that we've never followed in the 3 years I've been on council. There was a very important vote on this council that I was not at, that nobody tabled for me to be at to get my opinion. I don't feel that's a rational reason to withdraw a motion. And if we're going to take that stance, then we need to apply it equally to all members on this council, and we shouldn't be making any decisions without the full council.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to table this topic until such time and have staff come back with a statement about I don't know how to say this,
City's position on
city's
conduit bond.
position on conduit bonding is we don't have a policy at this time, but would look at each instance individually.
I'll come up with something.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you, Scoutmaster Roth.
All right. Item number 12 is review mini resumes and select semifinalists for city administrator position.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you, Ms. Bolden.
All right, so as you well know, we've been in the process for a few months now of searching for a permanent city administrator. Council made a decision a number of months ago to engage PAA, Public Administrator Associates. And they basically, we put together a profile of the city, we added pictures, the mayor did a video. We've advertised all over the nation for this position. The position opening for applicants, initial application was due on Friday. Over the weekend, PAA tabulated the candidates into a document which I sent you, and they color coded it, green, blue, yellow, and red. We've just put numbers on these candidates because in Minnesota, it's a public meeting when we discuss these, and some of these people are currently working for cities and or organizations and do not want it known that they're applying. And so the professional thing to do would be not to mention cities, or, you know, we don't know their names obviously, but it would, you know, not give identifying IDs for them, so they may be outed and may be detrimental to their position, even when they don't advance. So with that, I'm gonna bring in Sean Murphy, who is an associate within PAA. He currently is serving as an interim administrator in Rice Lake and has a long history of serving cities in the area. If you wanna come up and kind of walk them through the process.
Thank you, Clark. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm filling in for Kevin Brunner, the president, who's finishing up a recruitment just across the river in a western Wisconsin municipality tonight as well. We did get a good response to the solicitation for applications for your administrator, 24 candidates in total, which is I would say a more than we've seen in many municipalities. Like a lot of positions, the number of candidates seems to be decreasing. And with these, the number of candidates that are qualified are pretty robust as well. As Clark mentioned, we went through them, signified or identified them as kind of in tiers. The top tier, the highest, tier one, the highest qualified candidates, we are recommending you strongly consider them as semi-finalists. They have significant job experience. They meet all of your requirements and qualifications for the position, and they have good, work histories. There are 9 of those candidates that have been placed in that tier one. The second tier, the blue tier, has 3 candidates in that they also meet all the qualifications. They have good experience and could be considered as semifinalists. However, there are some instances that we've become aware of in their background that they've either been dismissed several times from the municipality, or they had some bad experiences at a previous position that may warrant a little more looking into before we recommend those into the tier one. The next one is the qualified candidates, which is the yellow category or the third tier. There are 7 of these candidates. And again, mostly these do make or meet or comply with your requirements for consideration. They might be somewhat deficient on years of experience or breadth of experience, and that's why they get placed in the upper 2 categories. And then the last or final category is the red, which we have noted 5 candidates in this category, and we are recommending you do not consider these further, mainly because they just did not meet your minimum qualifications to begin with. So that didn't warrant any further consideration of those. What we're looking at tonight then is consideration of the 24 candidates, looking at trying to narrow that down into a group of semifinalists, usually about 7 or 9 that we would ask to do a video for viewing by the council at a later date. We have, I think Clark has distributed the draft letter that we would send to the semifinalists with some questions that they would answer in the video. The video in duration would be 6 minutes, so they'd have 6 minutes to answer these questions. We come back, view the video responses from each of the semifinalists, and then from that, you would reduce it down to 4 or 5 that you would like to interview and bring on site. And we do have a process, kind of call it our assessment center. We do interviews with council members. We do interviews with, our staff has an opportunity to meet with them, do some tours. We also have the option of providing emotional intelligence assessment to kind of gauge their ability to respond to, and how they respond to different scenarios and confrontational types of situations that administrators can find themselves in. We also have a writing exercise that you can consider having them complete as part of that process as well. So with that, I guess I'd like to maybe start with looking at either starting at the candidates, see if you have any questions about them. Essentially, there are 9 candidates in the tier 1 category that meet all your qualifications. They have good experience. We have history with several of them. We have good background knowledge. We feel they would be good fit for the city of Lake Elmo. And so essentially we would be recommending you consider those as essentially your initial pool of semifinalists. If you want to look at some of the other candidates, there are obviously several qualified candidates that have good experience in those other categories as well, and we can talk about them as well.
Councilmember Holtz.
So I'll use numbers, no specifics. So number 15. If I'm looking at there, in the most recent position through current, 15 has been there for 9 years. Given that position that it is, would that raise any concerns for you in terms of why hasn't that person changed?
Kind of, stepped into the city administrator chair, you're saying?
Yes.
I actually, this person actually came to the city and toured, interviewed me actually to learn more about the city. The position is that person's boss is fully supportive of this person moving on because that person is not interested in moving anywhere for a long time. And so he's very supportive of helping this candidate move forward. And so that's basically why that person has never stepped into that chair.
So I'm not necessarily hearing a concern that, like, one hypothesis I had was maybe they had tried in the past, but they were unable to because of, similar to what you mentioned with our blue, that you had found something that was a flaw. Obviously, that's not the case here.
I didn't have any problem with this person at all.
And then with 17, 18, is there a way to say, because you described the blue categories as they meet the stuff, but. And when I look at 17 and 18, obviously, we don't see the but there, but is there a way to describe it that would?
I know of the but on 17.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
17 here, sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, so it's my understanding, talking with Kevin, that, what you're looking at, what we're looking for a candidate here overall is we want to find somebody who has skills and basic cultural fit. A lot of what you're looking at here in this sheet of paper is skills. You're looking at education, you're looking at experience. To a certain extent, we're paying PAA to put their thumb on cultural fit.
Yep.
And without going into detail, I will say for sure, 17, I would say would not be a cultural fit for you.
I agree.
So either way, it's based on a known variable, and it's, okay.
Councilmember Baxter.
I'm curious about number 3 and no red flags on that one. Because I don't think that one would be a cultural fit here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
I don't think that person would be a cultural fit here. And there were no red flags on that one?
Well, I know this person as well. She has a good, long history in a smaller community. And so there was a changeover in the council that wanted to move in a different direction. And so.
And
essentially parted
no,
ways.
nothing about an investigation?
I'm sorry?
Nothing about an investigation?
Not to our knowledge at this point, no.
All right.
So one of the things from PAA's perspective, we have 24 candidates. They do basically some investigation, some background check. The semifinalists will get a much more thorough vetting and a report basically from PAA. So a lot of these people are not thoroughly vetted. It's just some of these, I mean, the average tenure for a city administrator in the state of Minnesota is 34 months.
Right.
So these positions change over a lot, and so you get to know people just because they turn over.
And we've had some prior experience with some of these candidates. As Clark said, once you select the semifinalists, then we'll do more of a deep dive and check their references, kind of check to make sure they graduated from with degrees and things of that nature. We don't do, however, criminal background or financial backgrounds. We leave that up to the municipality as part of the conditional offer if it's a pro offer.
We'll have Sergeant Erickson stare him down. Yeah, Councilmember Dragisich.
A question, when you're looking at these candidates, have you done like a basic Google search to find if there's anything that would be embarrassing in their background? Should we name them as a finalist and their name come up?
We, again, that's where we kind of start to do more of a deep dive. There's a lot of stuff that comes out on the internet that is maybe not vetted out or hasn't been fully researched. And so we don't put a lot of stock in people with posting on Facebook or Instagram or things of that nature that kind of appear. We do look at contacting their prior employers. And in many cases, if they have left on a non-disclosure agreement or some sort, that usually raises a red flag, that they can't talk about it, the candidate can't talk about it, But, and that's where we will provide much more detailed information on some of those things that may pose a red flag or may not fit into the culture of the candidate that you're looking for to fit in the city of Lake Elmo.
I just
Yes,
reiterate
Brian.
what I used to do a little bit at in the business. I remember one search, I did a Google search, just straight out Google search, found that candidate had been fired for inappropriate charges on his on a city credit card. And that just came up on the search and was, council fired him, that was the reason stated. So that's kind of, what do I have, you done a basic Google search on these candidates to make sure there's nothing like that?
Yeah, I mean, we start with that to kind of look for potential red flags, but then we kind of go back and check on them. If in that particular instance, if there was a termination at the municipality because of improper activities or things of that nature, we contact the municipality and try to get the information directly from them as to why there was a separation.
Yeah, we're trying to get basically from 24 down to, like you said, maybe 7, 9, somewhere in there. Then in turn, they'll do more work and background on it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Backstrom.
I was trying to find the qualifications, and I was reminded it's in probably an older council meeting packet. But can you help me understand why candidate number 1 is green? I don't see any municipality, city administrator leadership whatsoever. Was that not a requirement?
This candidate did have extensive experience in the utility side of it and in the municipal level, but you're right, as far as city administrator position, they're somewhat limited. We felt it was offset by their extensive experience in the utility side and in working in a municipal environment.
I don't think I'd put that one as green at all. Again, I don't have the criteria sitting in front of me, but
Well, you might remember when Kevin was here, we did talk about adding experience outside of the city administrator, specifically strong department head leadership and military experience. You know, we have people that come out, we talked about that here at the council. People have strong military leadership, that have run battalions and stuff, but have no city administrators experience, can make very good leaders in an organization, and we did talk about that.
well, military might be a little bit different, but,
Yeah.
okay.
And maybe just to review in the published solicitation that was put together in conjunction with your input, the qualifications that we look for in the candidate is minimum qualification is a bachelor's degree in public or business administration or related field with a preference for a master's. A minimum 7 years progressively responsible administrative and leadership experience in a municipal organization or utility is desired. Consideration will be given to candidates in the private sector or military backgrounds, provided they can demonstrate accomplishments relevant to the identified skills.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion to advance candidates numbered 1, 4, 6, 9, 10,
Slow down.
14, and 15. That's 7.
Which ones?
1, 4, 6, 9, 10, 14, and 15. They're all tier 1. And I'm only leaving 2 of the tier 1s out, namely number 3 and number 7, I think it was.
So green minus 3 and 7.
Yep.
I'll second, although I don't like number 1.
It's okay.
That's okay.
We can see how it works out, right?
That's right.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Give you guys a couple seconds to flip through your papers and I know some of you have put together your own little ranking of numbers, but
Correct.
yeah, I've got you.
Well, and it's interesting because yellow is almost like your mid-American coach, right? Whereas green is they've already been in the Big Ten and now they're looking to leave for the SEC. Like that's kind of whereas blue, they've been in the Big Ten, but And so that's why I'm kind of struggling, like, would there be a yellow where, you know what? They are looking for, they might be the one, that person who is the diamond in the rough, and through the interview process, you might find out if you're removing two as it is, but just throwing that out there, but,
Just because we're in the final four, you're looking for the Cinderella?
no, we don't make the Final Four. We make the NIT in this state.
Okay, all right.
I did not see anything in the yellow that gave me the confidence that they would usurp somebody that was in a tier one going through another 2 levels of the interview process and looking at the short-term resume.
It's a good analogy. It's more like they're been assistant coaches. They haven't quite been into the head coach level, if you will. I think they're up and coming.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Yeah, I'm not so keen on candidate 10. It's because of a little Google search I did and a transcript of a telephone conversation was discussed at a council meeting. And as I understand, he's also accepted a position in another city.
Okay. I guess I would say this, and I'm not afraid of removing one, but the more we remove, the less we have for comparison, and they will get pared down. And we did hire, this, PAA to do that secondary level discretionary, or that work through to come up with some of those findings for us and let them do their job. In other words, I don't think this, beyond this first step, should be really laborious on our part, given, PA's experience and coming through and, I feel like I heard Administrator Schroeder say, 6 to 8 or 7 or so.
I agree with both of you. I think it's worthwhile to have the additional person for comparison, and I agree with yourself as well when looking at items that have come up with candidate 10.
Okay. Are you requesting to amend the motion to remove number 10, Councilmember Dragisich? A friendly amendment?
I guess I could live with leaving candidate 10 in there. I think as you go down, you may find that he may not, or the candidate may not
They?
make the cut, but.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, if it will be self-evident.
Yep. So I'm gonna call the question. All those favor the motion to advance candidates numbered 1, 4, 6, 9, 10, 14, and 15 to be semi-finalists for the Lake Elmo City Administrative position, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. There we go.
Excellent. Just one more.
Yeah, so the next thing basically you have in front of you is the 8 questions, which will be answered in the video. This video will be recorded by the candidates. They will send it in to me. There's a deadline on there listed on your sheet. I will in turn send it out to you ahead of the council meeting. I would expect everybody to watch that ahead so we don't have to spend our time watching the videos. And then we'll have another report from PAA. And with that, we would be looking for feedback from you if you want to edit the questions that you're looking for from the candidates.
Councilmember Holtz.
I couldn't answer those 8 questions in under 6 minutes in a authentic and fruitful way. Obviously, 20 minutes would be horrific. I couldn't answer those in a transparent way that I want a council to know in 6 minutes. I like the questions, they're great. I could see 12 minutes or 10.
We
Like-
could also pare down the number of questions at this stage, add some of those questions at the next stage.
Yeah, because questions 4 and 5 are asked all the time in interviews. 5, I mean, last time I answered something similar to 5, the question itself took me 20 minutes.
Yes, Councilmember Backstrom.
Can you just, I imagine that this is an approach that you've used with other cities, and so do candidates typically have issues with the 6-minute limit?
They all come in pretty much right at 6 minutes. This is not so much, I mean, it is the content of their answer, but it's also their delivery, their style, their, essentially, their composure. And so it gives you the first sense of how they appear and how they interact.
And they need to be succinct.
I've done this myself as a candidate, interviewing for a job for that firm. And, yeah, it takes 8 practices to get it down. I mean, it literally takes a long time. It's a big investment from the person to get this down to 6 minutes.
Right. And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I like the questions.
Okay, so what we'll do then, if there's no further comment on that, PA will send that out to those candidates as were approved a little bit ago. And then what happens to the candidates that are not advanced? Do you let them know, or they are backup reserve in case, are they on the bench, right in the bench here?
They're on the bench yet, yeah. We kind of
Okay.
keep them in reserve as, just in case you throw out 6 of the 7 you think, and so then we go back in and take a look at the rest of them. So we do kind
Alright.
of keep them in abeyance, hold them in abeyance.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, item number 13 is appoint commissioner.
Carissa was gonna be here, right?
She was unable to be here, but she did send out an email earlier today.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, letting the council know that the status of the 2 folks that were interviewed. I don't know if everybody got that.
I did
Yesterday.
yesterday.
And so we had one candidate, because we have an opening on planning. I think the recommendation was to accept the person that was interested in parks but not on planning, and appoint, interested in parks, not in planning, appoint her to parks, as we had done the interviews for that. And then basically direct staff to bring back the gentleman who is interested in planning back to another meeting to interview for the planning questions.
Move to appoint Tammy Sturts to the open commission on the Parks Commission, and to have staff bring back Samuel Dean to interview for the Planning Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? Councilmember Backstrom.
I don't think we need to bring Sam back. I feel like we should just appoint him to planning commission that's been the practice in the past. We've done this where we've had multiple candidates for one commission and then an opening on another and offered it. And so he's interested, and I liked him. He had energy and interest, and that's who we should be getting on our commission. So I don't really see a need to bring him back for answering questions for us.
That's council's discretion to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not here, but I'm gonna let you guys carry the candle on that one.
I will friendly amend mine to reflect Councilmember Beckstrom's input.
Great.
I will friendly amend my second to support Councilor Bection's.
Awesome.
Ms. Johnson, do you have a good reading on the motion?
I do, thank you.
All right. So the motion is to appoint well, hang on. Pull this up. Ms. Sturts to the Parks Commission, and Mr., was it Dean?
Samuel Dean.
Dean to the Planning Commission. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Staff will do notifications.
Thank you. Number 14 is moved from the consent agenda, is approved senior planner job description and job posting.
So currently, we have the senior planner is budgeted for 2024 this year. This person would work primarily on the comprehensive plan amendments, major subdivisions, plan unit developments. As you know, currently, we have Bolton and Mink under contract. This individual would take on new projects as they come in, and the idea is Bolton and Mink would continue to work on the projects that they have. Just really quick, the reason it was removed from the consent agenda is because when we submitted it, it read bachelor's degree in urban planning or related field is a minimum qualification, but 5 years of experience in addition may substitute for a degree, and we want to go ahead and change that to 3 years of experience. And
Okay.
move forward with that.
And so you think 3 years is sufficient to be senior planner?
I think so. I think realistically, the qualifications the applicants that we'll get will be people with master's degrees in 3 to 5 years.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions for Mr. Stolpa? All right,
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
I'll second it. All those in favor of having the position posted as amended by Mr. Stopa, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Mayor, can I have I'll have a comment for council's edification on this. We have, as was said before, we have 2 contractors who are working through different projects. Our focus here is to keep those contractors on the projects they have started.
Yep.
And have them work through there to make sure that the new person works out, gets time for crossover and training, and we're not just dropping and all of a sudden we got a problem. So we will take care of the transition on that.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Great, thank you. We have council reports. Councilmember Dragisich.
No report.
Councilmember Holtz.
No report.
I don't have a report. Councilmember Beckstrom?
No report.
Okay.
We have a couple updates here. On the website, there's a new utility billing portal. And so if you go to the website and go to the utility page, you'll see where we're changing vendors on this. And so we're asking citizens, so far we've got 300 signed up. We're asking them to sign up with this new portal. The old one is antiquated and is not functioning in the long run. So we'll have to you'll have to go through, after you sign up with the new one, you'll have to eliminate any automatic payments you have on the new one. Feel free to call City Hall with any questions on that. We currently started last night live streaming our cable here onto YouTube. So it's simultaneously, so hopefully it's gonna be a little bit easier than people going through the process of going through the cable caster network and then waiting for staff to upload. One of the considerations that we had was, or that staff had was, Metro INET was like, well, what happens to the videos if YouTube goes away? I'm like, well, we probably won't have a world if YouTube goes away, but we basically will be downloading them to our servers so that if YouTube does go away, we still have the backups for records for the YouTube, so then that facilitates at least their concept of public records retention. Planning Commission has a meeting next Monday on the 25th, and City Council has a meeting on the 2nd. And to remind the citizens who are concerned about the downtown moratorium, we will be studying this issue at a workshop on April 16th. So the next city council meeting on the 2nd, that will be when we'll be going through the semifinalists that were picked tonight. And we'll be, again, probably using numbers, but with better background, better reference checks, And we'll try to transmit that data as fluently as we can without outing people who are still in a position. In Minnesota, once you become a finalist, once we go down to, let's say, 3 candidates, they will be notified, those would be in the paper. You've seen those all over the metro area for the years that you've been aware of that. And that's all I have.
Julie?
No report, thank you.
No report.
Nothing, sir.
Just a quick update, tonight we pulled the agenda item for the task order for the Minnesota Department of Health-led service line inventory. And the reason we did that is we did get word from the Department of Health that we are going to get grant assistance for that work. So we'll still be having SEH do the work, but they'll be contracted directly by the Department of Health at this time, so.
Good news, thank you. Ms. Ansala?
No report.
All right, with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:45.